Hello.
Hey, all right. Hey everyone, I'm Jessica with that hashtag show, and I'm here today with Denzel Whitaker to talk about the angry black girl and her monster. So just to kick things off, let's take it back to the beginning. How did you first get involved in the film? What drew you to the movie?
Sure. Honestly, it was an audition process, like most films. Getting the material, taking a look at it, kind of seeing, all right, well, what does this film want? What are the requirements? But for me, the real selling point was understanding Bomani's vision, getting to really speak with him, getting to know kind of like, well, why did you write this character? And not only particularly Kango, but all of the characters. What is it that you would like to say with this film? And I was really taken not only by their individual portrayals, but just the overall arc and the themes of the film and what he wanted to say through what was essentially this package of like a creature feature. So, for me, Bomani's vision really, really ruled my choices in terms of like wanting to do this film and wanting to be a part of it and just really understanding like how can I be of service to bring your vision to life.
Absolutely. And I always find that when people are serving as both the writer and the director, it's like a very singular focus.
Oh, yeah.
He's got his very specific vision. Was there anything that he said to you in like those early days that really brought you on board or that stuck with you?
Uh, all right, not to be cliche, but it's more like, there's more to the characters than meets the eye,
Mhm.
you know. That to me was really resonant because again, Kango on paper, um, coming from where he comes from, the activities that he's involved in, he's almost like a stereotype. And to me, that's not that interesting to play the stereotype of the drug dealer, the gangbanger, you know, just to be the antagonist, just because the story needs that. That's not really that interesting. So as I kept like reading the script and really, having those conversations with Bomani, starting to understand the humanity of Kango and then thinking like, oh, here's where I can interject some of my truths or some of the truths that we know historically between us culturally. Uh, that was what was most resonant for me.
Absolutely. And I think Kango is probably one of the best examples of the character work in the film, just because, like you said, he starts off as this antagonist and could be very, stereotypical one note, but then he does have this sort of own journey transformation. We get to see eventually him helping out in the end. And I know for me, one of the scenes that was really powerful was when um, your character and Vicaria are having their one of their confrontations, and she's really laying into Kango and saying like, it's your fault that, my dad's on these drugs and like all of this is coming back on you, all of the problems that we're dealing with. And Kango comes around and is like, actually your dad's alive because of me, and like it's a lot more complicated than you want to see it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, isn't it always? Isn't it always? It's two sides to every story, and it's about perspective. And I remember reading once, and this is again just a nod to Bomani and what he was able to craft. It's like when you're writing an argument, both people have to be right, you know. And what's interesting about that particular confrontation that you chose to bring up is also it's a battle of wits for the both of them because for the first time we truly get to see Kango's potential, and we also get to see Vicaria's shortcomings. Vicaria's shortcomings, whereas her arrogance, that she is the only smartest person in the room.
Mhm.
Um, she believes that she knows everything without necessarily knowing life. And Kango, in particular, his intelligence um, that he possesses, and he almost sort of subdues because he feels like he needs to play a certain way for his community and the people around him. But then when his intelligence is insulted, now it's time for some hard truths. Now it's time for a mature conversation that Vicaria may not be ready for, you know? And it's a very particular interesting scene where we get to see, okay, the depths of both of those characters, um, and why they're at odds, but also to how they could relate to one another.
I like how you're describing that as both that both sides of the argument have to have some validity there, and then also that they're coming from two different sort of intelligences or like approaches to life because Vicaria doesn't have that life experience yet. She's just got the brainy smart kid smarts and she has to
Yeah.
get to that life experience point.
Book smart, not street smart,
Yeah,
and you kind of need it all. You got to be well rounded. Yeah.
true. It's true. And this is a whole journey for her to really see the other side too.
Yes, yes, yes.
Do you remember any specific direction or insight from Bomani about Tango and sort of developing your character as you went through the film?
Yeah. Specific insight was, one of the things that Bomani and I were really trying to figure out is, again, like, his intellect. Because given the same opportunities as Vicaria, or even greater, would he be doing what he's doing? Who were the people who influenced him? What was the community that he was basically born and raised into? Why does he feel like this is his responsibility? To push this product or to provide opportunities for the people around him. Those are the things that Bomani and I were consistently challenging and trying to find. Because even when you think about like the mechanics of Kango and Jamal, and like why does this much bigger, brawnier man carrying a machete feel like he almost needs to take command from somebody like Kango, who's much smaller, less intimidating than he is on surface. But it's really, again, that wit, that intellect that almost sort of creates the dynamic between their friendships. It's like when you think about the power struggles between like Lex Luthor and Superman, not to make that comparison, but Lex Luthor was everything that Superman isn't, in the brain. He might be the strongest man alive, the fastest, whatever, but it was the brain that really like created a challenge for him. And so these are the things where Bomani and I were very particular about, very careful with crafting, just because we wanted to tell something different. We didn't want to just tell, again, the straight up story about a gangbanger. Like, how do we make it a little bit more nuanced and rich? So not only can we find justification in what he does, but we can also create an understanding like, oh, I get it. If I were placed in those shoes, hopefully, maybe I would have made a similar decision or maybe even better. But I can at least understand, you know?
Exactly. And this movie is really unique too because all of like your character, they have very grounded, like realistic, at least stories in terms of like their everyday struggles and what they're dealing with. And then we have Vicaria over on the side doing her mad scientist thing and like raising the dead and whatever. But I think it's really interesting that your character doesn't really get involved in that aspect of it until the very end. So for Kango, he's like in a drama for the first three quarters of the movie, and then all of a sudden it's like a monster movie for him.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
what's it like, sort of juggling, I guess, the real life horrors and the sci-fi horrors when you're shaping that character?
You know, it's interesting because that's almost like saying, being a part of a horror movie, do you play up the horror? You know what I mean? Um, it's you play it moment to moment. You play it as real as possible. Like you don't play the genre, for instance. So for me, it's like, what are the stakes of the scene? Where are we at in terms of like character and development and the overall arc of everything? Uh, Kango's just trying to figure it out. He knows something is going on within the community. He knows, Vicaria is afoot up to something, you know. And then all of a sudden, when this monster is starting to be revealed, how ridiculous all this is. But there is a real threat, and it needs to be solved for, you know. So you just play it moment to moment. You play what's real on the page, and you play the circumstances as real as possible.
Now, I know you mentioned in the beginning that the the monster element helped draw you into this project? Is horror a genre that you feel drawn to? I know you worked on the Purge series and stuff like that, so you do have some horror experience, although that isn't a monster film, a monster thing per se, but horrors of humanity, I think, and those sort of themes definitely still there.
Horror is something that I like, I enjoy, I'm not particularly drawn to, but as an actor, again, the stakes are the stakes.
Mhm.
So I don't think about it as the genre itself. Now, once I've shot the project and then I'm sitting there in the audience, it's similar to being in the Wes Craven project that I did. You know, it's similar to being in No Escape. I've been a part of some thrillers that are really exciting, and then when I get there and I'm sitting there watching the film, and it's like, oh, oh yeah, there's my heart racing. You almost detach from it at a certain point. Uh, so to say, am I impartial to horror? I love a good thriller. I love some fun, campy, gory films. They're great to watch. But then also when you're playing them, you're just playing the stakes.
That's fair. That's fair. Do you have any favorite moments from being on set, either working with your co-stars or working with Bomani?
Ooh, the rehearsal process was really fun. Um,
I don't think I hear that a lot. I feel like people are very nervous about their rehearsals and like trying to figure it out.
no, no,
But like they're really having fun till the end. That's nice to hear.
no. The rehearsals were fun because we get to just continue to find what is the character.
Mm,
We get to just continue to explore. So for me, it's always I would rather craft the character and show up and be exactly who we need to be because there's only but so much time you have on the day of. We're racing against the clock and resources at that point. So I don't mind the rehearsal process. Also, just trying on the character clothes and getting into the skin of the character, the world. That's always exciting. There was a particular scene where it was in the dead set of the summer. We lost power to the AC. We couldn't even turn on the AC within the studio because,
oh no.
making too much noise. And it's about 90 to 100 degrees, humid southern North Carolina weather on a hot sound stage, and we're doing jumping jacks and push-ups, and we gotta sweat, and it's intense, and all that sweat you see on screen is very real. Oh, I think I had to at least lose 15 pounds that day.
Oh man.
Yeah, it,
I
it was intense, but it was a very memorable moment in the film. I'm glad we don't have to do it again.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I get that. Is there anybody who you would really like to work with next in sort of your future projects, looking to what's next for you? Is there any actors or directors who you'd really like to see yourself work on their projects?
Oh yeah, there's a whole list. There's a wonderful list of people. I'm just scratching the surface. I would love to, let's see, staying very maybe genre specific. I would love to be in one of Tarantino's films before he stops making films.
Sure.
I would love to be a part of Jordan Peele's world that he's crafting within the horror space, and especially his more social conscious films, very similarly to The Angry Black Girl and a Monster. Um, we talk about David Lynch and Fincher often, Bomani and I, when we think about like this space, and those are two very interesting directors who I love, like their vision and their specificity. But to be honest with you, there are so many wonderful actors, actresses, directors that I'm just a fan of. So the privilege to continue to do this, I don't want to just segregate that to one thing. I want to work with them all.
Perfect. Well, I would love to see you jump into Jordan Peele next and see what's going to happen there.
Thank you. From your mouth to God's ears. Let's
Yeah,
make it happen.
let him know. I'll let him know. All right. Just to wrap things up, why should everybody watch The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster?
um, well, it's a hell of a thrill. It's a fun time. but also too, it's challenging. There are some revelations that I think you're going to discover. I think the central themes of the film are going to be extremely resonant as you watch the film. So, no, you're not just coming for a fun ride and cheap entertainment. I think you're going to learn something, and there's going to be a wonderful takeaway to this film as well. Uh, and I have a feeling, God willing, that this film is going to be more resonant with audiences, and it's going to become, a cult classic, and it's going to have legs long beyond its theatrical release. So please go enjoy yourself. This is something for the culture, but also too, this is an expansive story that's based upon the roots of a tried and true classic, and that's why I think you should go watch it.
That's a beautiful pitch. I already saw it and I was on board, but I'm sold.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, that's all for me today. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you, Jessica. I really appreciate it
All right. Have a good day.
as well.